Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. I'm so glad that you are here. Today is June 11th, 2024. This is episode 282. This is the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about living your best life, whether you're on a homestead or not. I'm Amy Dingman. I live on a 5-acre homestead in central Minnesota, where I'm doing my best to raise some animals and grow some veggies and fruit and fill my freezer and my shelves. I think self-sufficiency and self-reliance is really important, but I'm also really big on community because I think that we figure out how to help ourselves so then we can help others. We get ourselves to a good place physically and mentally and financially, whateverly, not just because it makes things easier for ourselves, but also so then we can be in a position to be available to help others. So that's just my 2 cents on that. What are we going to be talking about today on the podcast? Today, I'm talking about a challenge that I started at the beginning of this month that I forgot to tell you about, that is actually taking place in my new group called the Get By Guys and Gals group that's on Facebook. So we're going to talk about that challenge today that you also can do. I'd love it if you'd go join the group, but you don't have to join the group to do this challenge. But that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get to that, what has been happening on the lifestead? Well, I'm going to tell you something. The rain and the wind here at Clucky Dickens Farm in central Minnesota has been absolutely insane. Ma Nature is making up for the last 2 years of drought that we have had. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Probably everybody in this audience is aware that weather apps are sometimes kind of drunk. They're sometimes they don't really know what they're doing. And it's really important that you all learn about the weather and keep your eyes up to the sky instead of just looking at your weather app and relying on your weather app to tell you what's going to happen, because it's not always right. And last week, we had some storms roll through that were not on my weather app. And if you are in my Telegram group, you will remember being part of this whole conversation, because I was posting video of what was going on. I was posting pictures of what was going on. And then I was posting screenshots of what my weather app was saying was happening. And the weather app was saying nothing was happening. And we had storms that were popping up just all of a sudden. You know, the ones where you're standing out in the field and you're working on stuff, and then the temperature drops really fast, really a lot. Like you can feel it. It just tanks and you get goosebumps and you're like, wonder what's going on. And then the wind just picks up and all of a sudden the sky gets really dark. And you're like, the weather app did not say that this was going to happen. There was no alert that said this was going to happen. And all of a sudden, then you find yourself kind of walking a little quicker to the house. And you're someone who loves to watch storms, but you kind of get this sense you maybe should not be standing in the field. And so you run to the house. You tell the cats, find shelter. That's actually what I said in this video I was taking. And then branches start coming down all around you. And you're like, what is going on? And you're looking at your weather app, and your weather app says there's nothing happening right now. So I just want to remind you all, weather apps are not infallible, and it's still really important to look to the sky and pay attention and be alert and know what's going on. That is my 2 cents on that. What else has been happening? My favorite tool on the farm is my scuffle hoe. Some people also call it a hula hoe. Some people also call it a stirrup hoe because it's kind of shaped like a stirrup. It's my favorite tool on the farm. It's a little bit more awesome than a regular hoe. If you don't know what it is, look it up. But it's my favorite tool, and I have 2 of them somewhere on the farm. I have located one, but we planted all this corn out in the field, right? And I was like, I'm gonna go out there with my scuffle hoe, and I'm gonna rip up the weeds that are, of course, coming up, because that's what happens. And so I'm out there and I'm working because it had been raining a lot. And so the ground is really good and soft, and it was super windy. So there were no mosquitoes bugging me. And so I think this is the greatest day. I will just go out and I will work with this scuffle hoe. And I was having a great time. It's my favorite tool. And I broke my scuffle hoe, y'all. It's an old scuffle hoe. The handle broke right down by, the end of it. And so I posted a picture online and I said, I'm having a moment of silence for this scuffle hoe because I was very sad. I broke it and then I was like, I'll just go get the other one. And I can't find the other one because that's the problem with tools. Sometimes they end up in places they're not supposed to be. And then when you need them, you can't find them. Okay, so I posted this picture and you would not believe all the people that were like, well, you just need to rehandle it. I know that. I rehandle things. If you've followed the podcast for a while or you follow me online for a while, you know that last winter I decided to go on this whole rabbit hole where I was going to rehandle old hammers and axes and hatchets and all this cool stuff, right? So I know how to rehandle, and yes, I'm going to rehandle it, but I just needed to have that moment of silence because it's so sad when you're into the project and then the tool breaks and you have to take time to fix it. This is that time of year. We're using our things and we're breaking them, and that's what happens. So it is still waiting to be rehandled. I have figured out that I think I can just use the handle that broke. It broke far enough down that I think I'm going to be able to just reuse that part without making the hoe too short to use. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned for another rehandling adventure with Amy. What else? The strawberries are doing really, really well. I learned about propagating strawberries from these hanging baskets that I purchased that are super healthy, and they're sending out a ton of runners, which is, how it makes new plants. And so I had learned that if you just take those little runners and you put them in another little tiny pot of soil and you kind of pin them down with maybe like a bobby pin or a safety pin, that you kind of unwind and turn into something that looks like a hairpin. You got to pin it down because those runners like to move. If you do that for a while, those runners are going to root in that new pot, and then you can cut off the runners and you can take that new little baby strawberry plant and you can plant it wherever you want. So that's what I've been doing. It's been awesome. I'm not just letting them root where they lay because they're trying to grab on to pieces of mulch that are sitting on top of plastic. So I'm trying to explain to the little baby strawberries, you're not going to be able to grow here. I need to put you in a little pot and move you to wherever my strawberry field is going to be, which I haven't figured out yet. But so that's what I'm doing. But I did want to tell you, if you have not had a homegrown strawberry, a legit homegrown strawberry from your property, I want you to be careful because here's what's going to happen. You're going to pop that homegrown strawberry that's nice and ripe into your mouth, and you're going to think it's like a store-bought strawberry. Homegrown ripe strawberries are nothing like store strawberries, and you might choke because homegrown strawberries are so incredibly juicy, you might choke. So that is just my PSA for you. Be careful eating the homegrown strawberries because they're so very juicy and so very awesome and so very wonderful, but they're very juicy in a way that the store strawberries just aren't. We can talk about why that is, but I think you probably know why that is. It has something to do with those store strawberries being picked when they're not actually ripe. Go down that rabbit hole if you'd like to. All right, let's head over to the main topic. Let's check out what this challenge is that I started and see what it is and what I have already learned from it being only 11 days in. So I decided to start a challenge in my Get By Guys and Gals group for the month of June. And I plan to have challenges every month. But this first one had to do with food. So this month's challenge, which you can do by joining the Get By Guys and Gals group, which the link will be in the show notes. Otherwise, you can just do this on your own. This month's challenge has to do with food, and it stems with my own need to get better about using the food we actually have here at the farm, okay? I don't necessarily mean the food we're growing. I just mean the food we have here in our house, okay, that we already have, that we've already grown or purchased, that food that we already have. I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to food. I think some people call that prepping, but honestly, I'm a bit of a hoarder because we raise a lot of the meat. We raise so much of our own meat, and also I like to stockpile things. especially when we go to the discount food store. I'm like, oh, this is such a good deal. Let's buy it. Okay. And then we buy more, and then we buy more, and we forget to actually eat the stuff we have. I know there are a lot of people out there who do this as well. Okay. This challenge, which is the use what you have food challenge, I guess is what we're calling it. It also comes from my husband and I kind of being in this new stage of life where it's mostly just he and I eating at home. Kid number 2 has moved out. Kid number 1 still lives here, but is very rarely here. And if he's here, he rarely eats with us. So now it's kind of just my husband and I eating most of the time. And we have tons of food, okay? And we need to start using it in a way that makes sense before we go buy a bunch more food, right? So a lot of people would just call this a no-buy month or a no-spend month, okay? That wasn't what I wanted to do because that seems really restrictive. And I'm one of those people where I start a challenge on something, whatever it is, and the first time I fail, I'm like, this is stupid, I'm done. Okay, no more. I'm a failure. This is dumb. I didn't want it to be that. I didn't want it to be so restrictive that it was going to be crazy. So in this use what you have month, I decided I still wanted access to dairy. I still wanted access to fresh veggies, which I don't have here on the farm. There's no veggies growing on my farm yet. The garden is planted, it is growing, but there's nothing to harvest yet. I live in Minnesota, and I also don't have a cow and I don't have goats, so I don't have access to dairy here on my farm, and obviously dairy doesn't last forever. So I had this thing in my challenge where I'm still going to go to the store to get dairy. I'm still going to go to the store or the farmer's market to get fresh veggies. I'm not in a survival situation, so I'm still going to head to the store for those items, but I'm going to do my hardcore best to not buy anything else this month. As far as groceries or meals go, I'm going to use all the stuff I already have. So I posted this in my new group, and I said, this is where your part of the challenge comes in. I want you to figure out what you'd like to challenge yourself to do for the month of June as far as a use what you have means to your groceries and your meals. And that can mean a lot of different things. Maybe you're not going to go to the grocery store at all. Maybe you're only going to go twice. Maybe you're only going to go on paydays. Maybe you're not going to go to the store for pre-made sweets or desserts, and instead you're only going to make your own from scratch. And if you don't have the ingredients to make your cake or your pie or your cookies, you're not going to have them. Maybe you're going to try and clean out one whole freezer as much as you can in June. Maybe if you don't have the food you need or the ingredient you need, you're only going to get it if you can get it through bartering with your neighbor or something. Like, I don't know what your situation is, but your situation is the one that matters. So I wanted everybody to do some thinking and then make a commitment for the month of June for this use what you have, for food. And then I wanted them to stick it in the comments so we could kind of hold each other accountable and be encouraging and all of that. So lots of people decided to do that. We're learning a lot as we go through this. We're posting what's working, what's not working, things we've figured out, tips and tricks, all of that. So it's pretty cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about why I started the challenge, what I've learned, and all of that. So why did I start this challenge? I think sometimes you just got to gamify it or you need to put a spin on it that makes your focus a little bit different. Okay. So doing a challenge with other people and kind of keeping track of each other and motivating each other, encouraging each other, I think is a good way to do that. And I know that some people will say the fact that you can do this as a challenge or as a fun thing, that's kind of a sign of privilege, because this whole use what you have is something that there are people who are literally living that challenge every day, and it's not a fun little game that you're doing with friends. And I get that, and that's not an incorrect statement. So I understand that. So just putting that out there for anybody who's like, what are you doing? Are you making fun of people who are, trying to do this as a way of life? I'm not, but the position that I'm in, I've got all this food in my house and I'm not using it, or it's like, oh, there's nothing to eat. I'm going to go, buy whatever else, which is so weird to say as a homesteader, but I will just put it out there because there are other homesteaders who are doing the same thing, and you know how real I am. So, yep, that's where the challenge came from. So what have I learned? All right. What have I learned? Number one, I have so many different kinds of meats here. So many. There was a day that we were supposed to get severe weather. Oh my gosh, the weather app actually said we were going to get severe weather, which the funny thing is it never came. But anyway, I digress. I decided I was going to spend part of that day going through the freezers, organizing stuff, just making sure that what I thought was in there is what was in there. We do keep them really organized. We put boxes and bags in there so, like food stays together with like food. But, sometimes things fall to the bottom. Sometimes wrong things get put in wrong boxes. And so I was just going through organizing things, okay? Doing that, I figured out we could have a different kind of meat every other day of the month and still not get through every meat that we have here in a month. Meaning, if I were to go down the list that I made of here's all the meats that we have available to us, if I were to go down the list and not repeat the meat that we were having, we would get through the whole month before I got through the list if we were using one thing from that list every day. And you're thinking, Amy, how can you do that? There aren't that many kinds of meats. Well, here's what I mean. I don't mean the animal it comes from. I mean the end product we made, okay? So here's the list that I made of all the meats that I realized we have here on the farm. I'm getting my list out. Let's see. So we have ground beef. We have steaks, beef steaks from a cow. We have beef roast. We have pork roast. We have pork chops. We have brats. We have brat burger. We have ground pork, Italian sausage, chicken breast, pork ribs, duck breast, bacon, smoked turkey, and we have some hot dogs. We also have venison steaks and venison roasts, which I completely forgot about. They were in a box. I don't know how this box got forgotten. It was kind of in the bottom of this freezer. And I think I thought it was something else just when I would see the box, kind of the edge of the box. It's a whole box of venison steaks and roasts. What? We also have grouse. When I made this list, and I'm looking at this list, I'm like, why are we only ever eating ground beef and chicken? And occasionally we'll have a steak? You guys, we have so much meat here. You may find the same thing if you organize your freezer or you just sit down and say, what food do we have in this house? I'm a visual person. I'm a tactile person. I write it down on a list and I look at it and I'm like, wow. Not only will that help you with your meal planning or making your menu, but it's just this visual of, whoa. We got a lot of food here. And for me, there was this secondary realization that was, wow, we're doing a lot of stuff here on the farm. That's kind of cool. Wow, we reached some goals that we set out to reach. So that was pretty awesome. Here's another thing that I learned that I've been getting better about as I'm doing this challenge. Using the fresh herbs that are in my herb garden and the chives and the tops of the onions that we are growing. This is something else I'm going to be real about. We can be super busy as homesteaders and not even use all the stuff that we're doing, okay? So I have planted herbs every year for I don't know how long, and I very rarely use them, okay? Part of the problem is that my herb garden used to be far from the house, okay? So I wouldn't think of it. Now it is closer to the house. I've moved everything up closer to the house, so it's convenient for me to just go out and grab the fresh herbs that I want to use. But the other thing is, I just didn't think about it. It was cool to grow herbs, but I'd be like, whatever. I just wouldn't use them. I don't know if that's something that y'all do too, but that was something that I did. And I don't know, we just get in over our heads or forget about all the awesome stuff that we have on our property in the name of convenience, or just because we forget, because we're not 20 anymore. I don't know. So I have been purposely using the fresh herbs from my herb garden and the chives and the onion tops and anything that is available to use right now. The basil, the sage, the cilantro, the mint, all the things that are out there. So it was kind of funny because when I thought about use what you have, as a challenge, it was this, so I don't have to go to the store, but it also became use what you have in the sense, hey, remember what you actually have and you actually use it, okay? Like, Amy, you're growing all this other stuff. Make sure that you use it, okay? So those are a couple of the things that I have learned thus far. Another thing that has happened, oddly enough, which is not at all what I planned for this month, this is actually, it's kind of led me to change how I eat. We've always joked here that our farm could be producing a lot of what we eat if we didn't need milk or grains, because I don't have a milk cow, right? I don't have milk goats. I had goats. I don't like goats, I figured out. And I don't grow wheat. So that was always kind of the caveat, right? Oh yeah, we raise a lot of meat and we grow a lot of veggies and we have some fruit here, but we still have to go to the store for milk and flour and wheat and all of that. And so because of this challenge and trying to use what we actually have here, and because of some other stuff that was going on, I just thought, what if I was eating in a way where it was closer to what we're actually producing here and less of what we're not? So going down that rabbit hole did lead me to a kind of a different way of eating, which I'm not going to talk about yet because I want to make sure that it sticks. But I did go and purchase a couple things to get going on that. I will talk about that more in an upcoming episode as I see how this is working for me. But it has been fun to go to the library and get lots of different cookbooks and start exploring recipes, because the thing is, if you're anything like me, you just get into, here are the same 10 recipes that I make all the time, right? We all do that because it's what we know. And every once in a while, we might try a new recipe because we're bored. But I've really tried a lot of new recipes this month. And I feel kind of like we're eating like kings and queens here. And it's funny because I find that I'm using a lot of the same ingredients and spices to make a lot of very different concoctions, which has been really cool. Okay. So it's like, I feel like eventually there will be less things in our house, less ingredients, less foodstuffs in our house, but I'll be making so many different things. It's kind of interesting to think about. I'm also, here's something new that I'm doing. I'm labeling the leftovers when they go into our fridge. I don't know why I started doing that. I just started doing that, I suppose, because I was making such different recipes. And so if the younger boy came home and started raiding the fridge, I wanted him to know what was in that container that he was eating. And also, if the older boy decides he's going to eat here, just to know what it is, because it's not stuff that I'm normally making. So now I'm just in the habit of labeling the leftovers. And I don't know, that just seems more organized. The other thing is that now that we have more fresh veggies in the house, because I'm hitting the farmer's market, I put a list on our dry erase board that's right off the kitchen. I put a list on our board of what we actually have because we need to eat them before they go bad. So last time I was at the farmer's market, I got asparagus, I got snap peas, I got some romaine lettuce, and I got spinach. So I didn't want them to go bad, and I bought way more probably than I needed to buy because, there's not that many people eating here anymore. And so putting a list on the board like, oh yeah, that's right, we need to eat the snap peas. Oh yeah, that's right, we have asparagus, we need to use that, has been really, really helpful instead of it just being in the fridge and getting moved to the back. And then I, how many weeks later I go, oh, look, the lettuce is all wilty and now the chickens get it. So that's a little bit about the challenge that we are doing over in the Get By Guys and Gals group. The link is in the show notes if you want to join. I'd love to know what you're going to challenge yourself to do. We've only been doing this for 11 days, and there have been some really big realizations and changes in people's houses as far as their food is going. So don't feel like you can't still join because it's too late. There's still, 19, 20 days left of this month. So you can get in on this if you want. You also don't have to join the group to do the challenge. You can do this challenge anytime you want. Just decide you're going to do it. I do think it's fun to do it with other people so you can kind of encourage each other and keep each other accountable, but you don't have to do that. The other thing is that I'll say about the Get By Guys and Gals group, it's not just a group where we do challenges. That's just something we're doing in the group. It's also a really great group to just talk about what's going on, what you're doing, maybe get some tips for some other things that are going on in your life. It's really turning out to be a very fun group where we have lots of great conversations. So head over to that. Link is in the show notes if you want to check that out. Otherwise, that's what I've got for you this week. I'd love to know how you are using the food that you actually have in your house. If you're anything like me, you got a lot of food. And this isn't just all about stockpiling for the zombie apocalypse, y'all. We also have to eat the food that we have because that's the reason it's there. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out and listening to my babble today. You could be listening to anybody and you still come back and listen to all the stuff that I'm talking about. So I thank you for that. I'm glad you're here. and I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com. Find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay Farmish.